So what if winning wasn't actually the point? What if the whole way we think about success in business and leadership, even in our own lives, is just fundamentally flawed? Okay, let's really dive into this, because once you understand the difference between two very different types of games, it can honestly change everything. Our story kicks off in a pretty surprising place. I want you to picture this. It's January 1968, deep in the Vietnam War. It's the Lunar New Year, a holiday called Tet, and it's supposed to be a time of truce. But then, out of nowhere, North Vietnam launches this massive, coordinated, surprise attack all across the country. It was called the Tet Offensive. Now, over the entire course of the Vietnam War, the United States lost 58,000 soldiers, a truly heartbreaking number. But compare that to the North Vietnamese, they lost over 3 million people. I mean, the scale of the devastation on their side was just astronomically higher. And this right here, this is where we find this incredible paradox. See, the US won nearly every single battle. Tactically, they completely overwhelmed their enemy. So you have to ask, how is it possible to win all the battles, but still lose the war? The answer to that question unlocks this whole idea of the infinite game. The answer lies in realizing there are two totally different types of games we can play in life. This is a concept that was first really laid out by the theologian James Cars. Think about it like this. You've got finite games, like, say, baseball. You know who the players are, the rules are fixed, and there's a really clear objective. You win. And then the game's over. But then you have infinite games, like business or politics. You've got known and unknown players. The rules can change at any time, and the whole objective isn't to win, it's just to keep playing. Now, big problems show up when a finite player goes up against an infinite one.
In that kind of mismatch, the finite player, the one who's totally obsessed with winning, they eventually just run out of will and resources. They get exhausted. They don't really lose, they just drop out of the game. And that, right there, is exactly what happened in Vietnam. America was playing a finite game, to win. But the North Vietnamese were playing an infinite game, for their very survival, for their freedom. And eventually, America just ran out of the will to keep playing, and they went home.
Now, this isn't just about history or war, not at all. This exact same dynamic plays out every single day in the world of business. And it really all comes down to the mindset of the leaders at the top. So, Simon Sinek tells this story about going to a Microsoft Education Summit, and he said a staggering 80% of what all the executives talked about was how to beat their biggest competitor, Apple. But then, he went to an Apple Summit, and the difference? It was like night and day. 100% of their presentations were focused inward, on their own cause. How can we help teachers teach better? How can we help students learn better? You see, one was playing to beat somebody else, the other was playing to advance themselves. And here's where it gets really interesting. When Microsoft came out with its Zune music player, it was, by all accounts, technologically better than the iPod. Sinek actually mentioned this to a senior Apple exec. He said, you know, your competitor's product is so much better. And the executive just looked at him, didn't miss a beat, and said, I have no doubt. And that was the end of the conversation. You see, here's the crucial point. An infinite-minded player gets it. They know that sometimes you'll have the better product, and sometimes the other guy will. It doesn't really matter. The goal isn't to be the best, because that's a finite idea. In the infinite game, the only person you're truly competing against is yourself. The goal is just to be better this year than you were last year. Simple as that. Okay, so if this is the real game we're all playing, how do you actually lead this way? Well, Sinek lays out 5 essential practices for any leader who wants to start thinking with an infinite mindset. So how do we do it? Well, to really play the infinite game, you've got to advance a just cause, you have to build trusting teams, find a worthy rival, practice what's called existential flexibility, and finally have the courage to lead. First up, a just cause. Now, this isn't some goal like be number one. No, it's a positive, optimistic vision of a future that doesn't even exist yet. A future so appealing that you'd be willing to sacrifice to help build it. The ultimate example of this, the U.S. Declaration of Independence. That vision of a world where all are created equal. It's an ideal we'll never perfectly get to, but we will literally die trying to move closer to it. Second, you have to build trusting teams. And what that really means is creating an environment of psychological safety. It's a place where people feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to raise their hand and say, I made a mistake, or I don't know, or I need help, without any fear of being humiliated or punished. There's this great story about a barista named Noah who worked at 2 different hotels. At the Four Seasons, his managers would always ask, how can we help you? And he said he felt like he could really be himself.
But at the other hotel, the managers were just looking for mistakes. So he just kept his head down and tried to get through the day. Same person, completely different performance, all because of the leadership environment.
Number 3 is you need a worthy rival. And this is a big one. This is not a competitor you're trying to beat. It's another player in the game whose strengths actually reveal your own weaknesses. A worthy rival is there to make you better, to push you to improve your own game, not to get you obsessed with theirs.
Fourth is what Sinek calls existential flexibility. It sounds complicated, but it's really the capacity to make a massive, disruptive change to your own business model or your strategy in order to better advance your just cause. When his team was worried that investing in the brand new Macintosh interface would kill their really successful Apple II business, Steve Jobs had this legendary response.
And this is the difference in a nutshell. Apple was willing to blow up its own successful business to chase a better future. Kodak, on the other hand, they actually invented the digital camera, but they buried the technology to protect their film business. They weren't willing to disrupt themselves, so the market did it for them, and they went bankrupt.
And that brings us to the fifth and final practice, the courage to lead. Look, all of this stuff is incredibly hard. There is enormous pressure to think in finite terms. Quarterly results, short-term gains, you know the drill. Having the courage to stand up to that pressure, well, it doesn't just come from inside you. It comes from the people around you, from the trust you've built, from knowing that somebody has your back.
And this is where it all comes back to us. Because life is the ultimate infinite game. We don't get to choose if we play. The moment you're born, you're in the game. The only choice we actually get is how we want to play it.
We can choose to live with a finite mindset. Always trying to get more power or more money than the people next to us. Or we can choose to live with an infinite mindset, dedicated to seeing those around us grow and succeed. So the question this explainer leaves you with is a pretty simple one. What game are you playing?